Wow, this is long overdue, but better late than never, right? Here are my top 15 films of 2018.
Mitä musaa te vajakit oikeastaan soitatte edes?
Sinfonista postapokalyptista reindeer grinding Christ abusing extreme sotapakana fennoskandimetal.
I'm nerdiest about two things more than anything: movies and metal. This is kind of my cup of tea right here. Heavy Trip is hilarious, it's charming, it's super fun, but it also has an endearing quality to it, so it's not just slapstick. The characters actually feel somewhat like people you've met before, so I loved that about it.
So what you gonna do with that thing?
I'm going hunting.
So what you hunting?
Crazy evil!
Oh man, I never pass up an opportunity to see Nick Cage go batshit in anything. The style of this film is incredible. The director, Panos Cosmatos, I actually had the privilege of interviewing some years back for his first film, Beyond the Black Rainbow. He explained to me that that film in particular, and this film definitely, reflect a feeling he had when he was a kid and wasn't allowed to watch horror movies, but would look at the back of all these VHS tapes at Blockbuster and read the description, see whatever kind of crazy shit this movie was about, and imagine what it's like in his head. So this is sort of an imagined horror film, very much like Beyond the Black Rainbow was. It's really trippy, really atmospheric and moody, awesome soundtrack. Make sure you're high when you watch it though. I mean, you don't have to be, I wasn't, but you have to set yourself in the mood to be really immersed in it.
We all love hearing about ourselves. So long as the people in the stories are us, but not us.
If you like the Coen brothers, I don't see what's not to like here. This is the first time they're actually doing an anthology film. In a sense, it kind of feels like a Coen brothers greatest hits album. A lot of really solid short stories in their usual kind of dark comedy style. Some have a more emphasis on the comedy aspect, some definitely more on the dark aspect. So whether you're into Raising Arizona or No Country for Old Men, I'm sure there's a little something for everybody here that you'll probably enjoy.
There was an article to Twins Reunited. I think I might be the third.
And this is truly an incredible documentary of the story of lost siblings, but what starts as a lighthearted story kind of turns very ominous after the obvious question is asked: how did these triplets' parents not know that they were adopting a triplet? It goes into the backstory of a study that was intentionally separating these three men. It was, in some ways, I hate to say pleasant surprise, but very well done documentary.
He was creating art that was inspired by another dimension.
I thought he was dead, and he lives like 5 miles away from me. This guy was pent up to tell his story. He was almost like a punk or something.
Stanislaw Zukalski's eccentric personality, like many surrealists, is incredibly charming, but as this story unfolds, we also witness him detailing tragic stories about how it alienated him from the world. Seriously, if you consider yourself any kind of artist, this film is definitely worth your time.
This is David Duke. What can I do you for?
Well, since you asked, I hate blacks. I hate Jews. And anyone else, really, that doesn't have pure white Aryan blood running through their veins.
I'm happy to be talking to a true white American.
Spike Lee's never been known for subtlety. He certainly has plenty of critics, but for some reason, his films, a lot of the time, actually really do work well for me. There's just a sincerity in what he's doing and a conviction and also an artistry. BlacKkKlansman may be a period drama with Lee's usual dose of sarcastic comedic flair, but it makes itself feel incredibly fresh and relevant to the racial tensions America is still experiencing today. This is no doubt the best Lee film I've seen in a long time.
Marmorvalge jume, otse kui sametist tõmmeldud huule. See neli armastab.
An Estonian film based on an Estonian novel based on Estonian folk tales. It follows legends of people making deals with the devil to create some sort of like demon thing, usually made out of like cow skulls and sticks and plowing tools or shit like that. It's pretty strange, but it's also very effective. It's got comedy, it's got romance. I felt really pulled into the romantic story specifically. It's got some creepy imagery, but it's just gorgeous looking. The cinematography alone is worth checking this film out for.
Some people claim that the atrocities we commit in our fiction are those inner desires which we cannot commit in our controlled civilization. So they are expressed instead through our art. I don't
For those of
agree.
you that are fans of serial killer movies, I do recommend this with an asterisk. This isn't your typical Hannibal Lecter, Zodiac killer kind of film. It's a Lars von Trier serial killer film. These two things together should scare you if you're familiar with his filmography. So there's also kind of a Dante's Inferno, very philosophical, provocative subplot going on, which takes a strange turn near the end. But it also kind of makes you think that maybe all of this intense violence, and I do again stress intense violence as in children getting murdered kind of stuff, almost makes it seem justified in a sense, since the film seems like it's having a conversation with itself about the nature of violence in art. It does have that kind of meta tone to it, but just beware.
As always, make sure to share and subscribe to my channel. Gucci!
I think you're so cool. Maybe you just need to put yourself out there a little.
I'm gonna stop eating with you if you keep.
This one might be a bit of a palate cleanser. 8th Grade is a film by Bo Burnham. This film tells the story of a girl growing up in this age, saturated by social media. Kind of sort of doubles as a coming-of-age film, and also an exploration of how social media can affect the development of relationships, especially in youngsters. It's really sweet, it's pretty funny, very genuine, even made me kind of tear up a couple times. Definitely more of a date movie than a lot of the films I've been throwing out there so far.
Bandersnatch. It's an adventure game based on the book. Jerome F. Davies was a genius.
See that bloke who went cuckoo and cut his wife's head off?
When it's a concept piece, a bit of madness is what you need.
Another brilliant work from the Black Mirror crew. This is yet another thought-provoking exploration of our existence as it relates to technology. This feels a bit more confrontationally existential as it explores the question, do I really have control of my destiny? And it cleverly does so as you control somebody's destiny. So if you have your little clicker for your Roku or whatever, you choose the little decisions throughout the film and it affects the ending, and there's tons of different endings. Even the filmmakers can't find all the little Easter eggs that they've planted in there, apparently. I guess it's normally about 2 hours for a normal pass. I don't have time to go through each and every ending, so I just kind of did the one that I was dealt. But the experience was so goddamn fun, creepy, and interesting. I just couldn't help but shoot this near the top of my list.
It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby, she wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you.
Who's gonna take care of me?
You don't think I'm gonna take care of you?
But when you die.
There was a lot of great horror in 2018, but Hereditary is definitely the standout for, I think, many people. To me, it honestly feels like it could be this generation's Rosemary's Baby, and it left my soul with a sense of being disturbed when I left the theater. Hereditary honestly nails what horror films often fail at, the balance between terror and horror. The terror is, its main characters are victims of awful tragedies. The horror, despite dipping into supernatural realms, feels like a natural extension of the grief the characters are experiencing. It's ultimately an effective drama and a chilling tale which doesn't offer the audience any easy answers. In the terms of craft, it's simply a masterpiece. This film follows a group of outlaws who live together and pose as a family, and they end up stumbling across a lost little girl who they bring in and take care of. Thematically, it explores the idea of what a family can and should mean. Also, I just gotta say, the little girl is seriously one of the cutest child actors I've ever seen. It's so easy to fall in love with her performance. This film, I think, is a real tearjerker too. It will no doubt break your heart, but I think in a good way.
We have to be patient.
Well, somebody has to do something.
Are you washed in the blood of
We don't see Ethan Hawke in nearly enough things, so it's good to see a vehicle for him. This might be his best performance. Director Paul Schrader wrote Scorsese's Taxi Driver. He's also heavily influenced by Ingmar Bergman and Robert Bresson. In fact, this film feels exactly like a modern mashup of Bergman's Winter Light and Bresson's Diary of a Country Priest. I mean, insanely so, to the point where I was actually angry with Schrader for specifically ripping off Bergman and Bresson in the first half of the film, down to some of the very scenes and story beats. However, I wouldn't have this near the very top of my list if it wasn't something special. The second half of the film really sees Schrader dig into the dark roots of man going off the rails, but it also combines that psychological aspect with the very profound spiritual and religious questions he sets up with the first or so half of the film. First Reformed is very powerful. It's a thought-provoking beast of a film. It's just so good. Just see it, please.
Dwa serduszka, cztery oczy. Oj, oj, oj.
Displaying the years of romance between a composer and a singer who fall in love in post-war Poland during the backdrop of the Cold War, this film is a melodrama in the classic sense, but seriously is the least melodramatic melodrama I've ever seen. Despite feeling like it could be a 4-hour war epic easily, this film manages to clock in under 90 minutes and you still feel like you've experienced the entire journey. What sets this apart is it doesn't focus on big bombastic narrative moments, violence, explosions, etc., etc. It focuses more on scenes that are just kind of key moments specifically in the relationship of these two people. I was just blown away by every aspect of this film. It's crafted with such care, every shot feels like a painting, the acting is brilliant, the music is just lovely, and it never once felt boring or pretentious.
When you dance the dance of another, you make yourself in the image of its creator.
There's more in that building than what you can see, Doctor.
I never would have expected the remake of a slasher film to crown my list, but holy shit. Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria is seriously so much more. As much as I enjoyed Dario Argento's original film, I always found it a bit lacking in some ways. Suspiria takes the concept of the original film, a dancing school suspectedly run by witches, and it crafts a much more elongated story about power dynamics and guilt and all these other really rich themes. Guadagnino himself describes the film as more of an homage to the original Suspiria than a remake, and that definitely makes sense. It's very divisive. I know fans of the original who hated this film, found it boring and indulgent, but I just couldn't disagree more. I was enamored for every second of it. I felt the mystery built was far more fascinating than the mythos that was crafted in the original. Also, this film has seriously one of the craziest, if not the craziest ending I've ever seen. I could probably go on for hours and hours deconstructing everything I liked about this film. It's pretty long at 2.5 hours, but I promise you it's worth the payoff for the ending experience alone. Okay, so why didn't I mention this movie? Why didn't I mention that movie? Well, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to see these, even though I really wanted to. And I wasn't too impressed by these, actually. So there's that. Also, there were a bunch that just missed the cut right here. So just to get all that out of the way. But overall, it's never really easy to narrow down a list for me. It takes a lot of thought and consideration. Obviously, a large degree of it is very subjective. So I tried. Sue me. Anyways, thanks for watching my video. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts. What do you really think was left off my list? What did I completely miss the mark on? Just let me know, and hopefully we will talk soon. These over here are films that just didn't really do it for me. I couldn't connect with them for one reason. Fuck you.